Bates Motel Season 4 premiere, A Danger to Himself and Others. Very excited that the show is finally back on. I really love this series, and it's one of those weird shows because, of course, it starts kind of late and then it tends to end towards the summer, so it has one of those weird schedules. But I was very excited that the show is finally back on. I think this was a really fun first episode, very surprising ending because with the way that they did things last season, where I was like, okay, everything's nice and safe until the very end where he kills Bradley. I was like, all right, that's gonna be kind of the big deal for the next season. But what I hadn't really considered is that Bradley is considered dead in the show anyway to everyone else. So the fact that Norman killed her really doesn't do anything, and they did something that they haven't done at all, which I love that they did it this way. But Norman finally talks to his mom about how she was there, or how she killed someone when it was actually him, but because they thought Bradley was dead anyway, it didn't seem weird. It was like, oh, you hallucinated, and it's not like, oh, you killed someone. But I love that they did it that way, because every other time he doesn't mention like, oh, you were there, or anything like that. He did that one time, and I believe it was really simple. It was like when they were talking in front of the hotel, and that was really it. It was like, oh, you were there, we talked about it earlier. But it never happened during any of the really big moments where he saw he saw his mom, and that kind of led him to killing something, or killing someone. So I thought it was cool that they had him actually talk about it, and it's like, unfortunately, this is the one time it won't, kind of break everything wide open, because they thought Bradley was dead anyway. So it's like, well, of course he was hallucinating. She's been dead, for a long time now. So I love the way that they played that. I watched the little catch-up thing. I don't know if you guys did or not, but I watched the little 15-minute thing because that always helps. I mean, going from one season to the next, all I really remembered about the season, honestly, was the fact that he killed Bradley at the end of the season. It was like, oh, instead of it starting with a death, it ends with a death. And then they went back to starting with a death in this season as well. And I have no idea how that's going to play out. I thought it was just crazy how they did it that way. Also, the woman that is Emma's mom, I'm assuming is Emma's mom. I meant to look that up and I completely forgot. But when she first showed up, I didn't really, I was far away from the TV, so I didn't actually recognize her. I'm going to try to look it up right now. Actually, I won't do the review because I totally forgot. But when she sat down and Caleb was like, or not Caleb, totally mixing up my names, but I can't think of his name now because I said Caleb. But when he asked her, are you Emma's mom? And she was like, yeah, and she turned. I was like, holy crap, that has to be her actual mom. It's either her actual mom or it's like her older sister playing her mom, or it's one of those two situations that is really it. But I thought that was crazy. I was like, that's really cool. I love when they do that stuff when shows, like an actor or an actress will actually have a relative come onto the show who happens to also be an actor or an actress. So I thought that was actually really cool. I've only ever seen that, I think maybe one other time, and that was in the show Being Human, where one of the characters had a twin brother, and it was actually her twin brother that came onto the show because they were actually both actors. So I thought that was really cool. I liked her character, and it was like, okay, well, she's in the show. She's obviously a big deal because Emma never really got to know her mom because her mom took off. And it's like, all right, so they're, introducing her into the series. That could be interesting to see how she affects certain things. Emma's going through the transplant and everything, which they said was textbook, and they just have to wait for the next 24 hours, which hopefully, it means that she'll be fine. She won't have to use the oxygen tank and stuff like that. And we'll, kind of get to see her be able to do new things that she wasn't able to do throughout the rest of the show. But she comes in and it's like, all right, it's her mom. I assumed this was going to be a big deal. She'd stay in the series. She talked to Norma, and of course, Norma freaked out. And so she's in the show, and then she goes back to the house at the end of this episode, and I was just thinking, I was like, okay, this could work. Seemingly, it was working. Things seemed like they were kind of working out fine, and I was like, alright, Norman obviously thinks he's Norma at this point, so he could easily say something that kind of clues her in. And of course, she was kind of shocked when he opened the door, and he's, of course, in a woman's robe, you could tell. So I was like, alright, so far he hasn't said anything where it's like, oh, my son, or anything like that. So, of course, she still thinks she's talking to Norman. And I was like, okay, this could just be a situation that happens to work out. She leaves. and he just still thinks that he's Norma, but everything's fine. And then he just snaps at like the very end. It's just like, he just turns and it's like, how could you leave your child in pain? And then he chokes her and kills her. And I was like, that sucks, because it sucked that she died, because of course she was just introduced. But then it was just like, the fact that it happened in the house has to be the craziest part, because I'm sure he's not going to be able to just, well, he probably could. I don't know if he's going to end up burying her body somewhere and no one finds out. But I thought for sure that Norma was going to come in and find him, because when she goes to see Romero in this episode, she mentions like, oh, I'll come to you. It'd only be like, I'll be there in a few minutes. So when she said this, like, okay, she's probably only like 5, 10 minutes, 10, 13, 15 minutes away. And I thought with the way they kind of ended that scene, where he's like, I'm not going to marry you, which is in itself crazy, but I'll talk about that. But when they ended that scene, I was like, okay, I think she'd have enough time to make it back to the house, and she'd actually find Norman trying to kill someone, and then it would be like, how does she cover that up? Because I thought she'd come in and save her, and then it's like, how do you cover up him trying to murder this woman if she's not dead? But ultimately, none of that stuff happened, so I'm very curious if Norma's even going to find out about this one. Of course, she goes through a lot of different processes in this episode, just emotionally dealing with the fact that Norman in the beginning is still missing, so they end up finding him. Then he's under the 48-hour observation. She, of course, says some stuff that's really weird, where it's like, oh, he's had blackouts, but I've never taken him to doctors and stuff like that. So the woman tells her, like, that could be considered negligent, because, and I thought it was funny when she's like, he has frequent blackouts and you've never taken him to a doctor. And she's like, well, it depends on what you mean by frequent. It's like, well, more than once in an entire year is more than frequent for a blackout. And it's like, yeah. So I don't, a lot of crazy stuff is going to be happening this season, which I'm very excited for, because that just makes it really fun. But I think what they did with, introducing the fact that he's going to be going to kind of this, psychiatric center, I'm really excited for that. And what makes me very excited is because I'm kind of in the middle of watching Damien right now, so I saw kind of the promo for what's going to be happening throughout the rest of the season, and it seems like it's going to be pretty nuts with him inside of the, going to the psychiatrist, because he tells him, he kind of fades into thinking that he's Norma during one of the moments, and I was like, okay, I don't know what is going to happen there, but it's not going to be good. So that happens. Apparently he ends up breaking out as well. So, and that's all in the promo, so like I said, it's not really a spoiler, because it's kind of like what's happening for the season. But I'm so excited for that. I don't know if he'll be on the run. I'm assuming he'll be on the run for quite a while. So that has me really excited. The stuff with Romero and Norma, which blew my mind when she asked him. I was like, at first I was like, you just want my insurance? Like, that's a weird question. Like, that's not even a thing that you can do. But then it made sense legally speaking, but it was still a crazy thing. It was like, why don't you marry me? And it's like, what in the world? That's effing insane. And I thought for a second that he might have actually done it. I was like, is he really going to do it? Because he's, the season starts off, one of the first scenes in the episode is him sinking the boat for the guy that he killed from the last season. And I forgot that was one of the things I forgot had happened. So, he sinks his boat and stuff, and I'm like, he might say yes. I don't know. He had a really weird season last season where, a lot of things happened. So I was like, he might say yes, but fortunately he was logical. But in the little promo thing, apparently they do get married and things are kind of working out. So I don't know what that means. It's kind of weird that that's how they end up having their relationship, because of course they really teased it a lot in the last season, and now it's just like, it's happening in the weirdest way. They're gonna, do like this sort of instant quick marriage so that Norma can help Norman. And I don't know why Romero would want to do it, because he said no in this episode. So of course it makes me wonder, like, why in the world would he say yes later? So apparently that's going to be happening, and that should be very entertaining, or just really weird. I don't know. It's clearly going to have an effect on Norman, because that's always been an issue. Like, he doesn't want anyone near his mom. So I doubt Romero's gonna get killed off, but honestly, when anyone's in a relationship with Norma, it's like I'm a little scared for their life because Norman is insane, and he's switching into thinking that he's Norma a lot more frequently. Like it happened a little bit last season where mostly he saw her and he talked to her, and then it was like the ultimate switch at the end of the season. But now it was like he did it like I felt like he did it a bunch of different times. You know, this episode, and I guess technically he did it twice last season because of the time he was talking with his brother Dylan. I remember. Um, but I don't know. I'm excited because it seems like he's switching way more frequently now. I mean, he switched in this episode and nothing happened. He freaked out a little and then he, burst through the door and then he changed. And I was like, okay. His adrenaline went up, I guess. And then, boom, he switched and he thought it was his mom. And it's like nothing seemed to happen right there. It wasn't one of those situations where, like with Bradley, where it was like an entire life changing thing where she's like, hey, leave everything behind. So it kind of messed with him and, it changed him or anything like that. It was just his adrenaline went up and he finally broke through that door and he just switched. And it's like, I don't know what to think about that. It seems like the simplest little things are suddenly going to be triggers for him changing now. And, from the promo that they have during Damien, he does it, during one of his sessions. There can't be anything, there shouldn't be anything that really triggers that state. But for whatever reason, it does. It's just like, the weird attachment, of course, that he has with his mom and how crazy and creepy it is. But I don't know. I thought it was really good. I'm excited to see what they do. I'm going to try to look up to see the thing if um, Emma's mom is her actual mom, because that really blew my mind. It has to be her mom. I would assume that it's her mom, but it was a really fun episode. I think it was a fun season premiere for sure because of everything that kind of happened in this one, and we didn't get a lot as to what's going to be happening with Dylan, and that was kind of one of the things from the last season. If I remember it, it was the last season, and Romero talked to him about the vacuum that was supposed to be created, like how he should take over, and that hasn't really happened just yet. So far, like his thing is like, I just want to kind of help Emma, and that's kind of where they're keeping his story, which I'm fine with because I do like Emma, and I think the relationship is actually pretty interesting because it did happen really fast, and just I think it was oddly natural, as quick as it was. It just worked, so I'm totally fine. Like this is one of the few shows where it's like the relationship stuff. I think is actually very entertaining to watch, and I think it's because with their relationship at this point at least being fairly normal, it's kind of weird for the show because everything else is so just insane around them, and even the stuff that Dylan does is pretty insane, and he's kind of stepped out of it at this point, but it's still not exactly simple. So and I guess that's kind of what makes it entertaining. They have like sort of a normal relationship inside of such an insane series, and it's like it's okay for it to be normal. It makes it oddly entertaining because everything else is just insane. So I'm excited for that to see where that goes. But I think because of Dylan's character, I feel like they're not gonna kind of get rid of the whole marijuana thing because he's made a name for himself for sure. He's been like one of the top people, like right hand man type stuff for an entire season. So I'm just not sure where things are gonna go. People know who he is. I mean, a lot of people do. So I don't know. Some stuff has to happen. I'm looking forward to what they're gonna be doing with him. I have to go through and try to find this thing for Emma's mom. So it says Emma Decoy here. I don't know. Olivia Cook. So I don't believe so. I don't know. I was trying to find. I don't know. That's who it was. Olivia Cook. It says that's the actual actress, but other. Okay, whatever. Well, I couldn't find it. I'm trying to go through and like do it really quick. Obviously in the middle, which is super stupid because I completely forgot. But I just like the way they did it. I think this was a fun premiere. I'm very excited for this season, especially after the Damien stuff. But I have no idea how Norman is somehow going to manage to get out of the situation after having killed Emma's mom inside of the house. Like that was that was probably the biggest thing about it, is that it wasn't like, oh, he killed her, somewhere totally random, or she died, you know, in one of the rooms. Maybe something crazy could have happened. They could set it up that way. She died in their living room. She like kicked over, like the teacups and stuff. Like stuff shattered when she kicked it, and the table's all messed up. And she's dead now. And I don't know if Norma's gonna come back and it's gonna be like, oh, found him or anything like that. But definitely a crazy way to end it, which I did not expect. I really thought, with it being her mom, she'd be in the series, and now she's gone, and basically we have Emma's little rabbit and a letter from her mother, who's unfortunately now dead. So I don't know where they're going to be taking it, but I'm very excited. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about this premiere, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and I want to know what you guys think is going to happen um, with the death that we had. It's inside of the house. I don't see where they could hide the body where it's not super suspicious. I would assume he'd have to take the body out somewhere pretty far, because otherwise, they've got a dead body in the backyard, or something like that. But I feel like that might be his only option. He doesn't have his own car, so he can't exactly take her anywhere. Like put the body in a car and drive off or something. So I feel like Norma might actually find him, which I would love to see that happen, because then she'd have to like really defend him, because she doesn't know officially, because she's kind of going with, oh, he's dangerous, but he hasn't killed anyone. That's kind of where she's at. And she's kind of just going with, oh, well, it proves this and it proves that, so he hasn't killed anyone in her eyes. But I'd love to see it if she officially found him and is like, there's no way out of explaining he definitely killed her. That's what I kind of want that, because I think it would make it even crazier to see what Norma comes up with to save her son. But I want to know what you guys think is going to happen. And like I said, I would definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know. And thanks for watching.